Hey everybody, today I'm going to be reviewing Materialist. This was directed by Celine Song. I'm a little bit under the weather, so I apologize for my voice, but this is her second feature film after the movie Past Lives, which gained a lot of critical acclaim a couple of years ago, and so naturally it was the perfect springboard to make a more expensive, more commercial Hollywood endeavor. You guys know I like to go into movies as blind as possible, if I can help it, so I don't know a lot, but I could see peripherally maybe this movie was being sold more like a rom-com with more modern sensibilities, but I'd call it more like a romantic dramedy. I'd say it has a classic rom-com structuring in the grand Hollywood sense, but within that we've poured in more a kind of a clean minimalist type of mood as we're pondering all the social dynamics and dilemmas of modern dating, particularly for people in their 30s, 40s. Dakota Johnson is our protagonist, and she is the millennial cool girl. She is a single woman in this movie in her 30s, and she is a matchmaker. And like I said, we've seen this formula a million times before. This character is very independent, assured of herself. She's cold, she's intelligent, she's shallow, but she's quite honest about it, at least. And she set up so many people on so many different dates, but will Dakota ever decide to settle down? She says she wants a rich man, hence the title, somebody that can take care of her financially. And, you know, it does make sense at a certain point, especially when you get to a certain age, you're looking out for your future, you want to be taken care of. And she finds herself torn between two different men in the movie. One of them is Pedro Pascal, who seems like he's perfect on paper in every way. He is intelligent, he's very interested in her, he wants a real future with somebody. He's also very rich, very handsome, and very tall. And the other is Chris Evans, who plays Dakota's ex-boyfriend, and he is still hopelessly in love with Dakota's character in a very real way, but he does not have his life together, and he's quite broke, and they love to throw this characteristic in your face any chance they can in the movie. He is a little bit scatterbrained when it comes to his future, and that is why the two of them broke up, because she wanted a better life for herself. The film, for me, like I said, it's like it's trying to bridge the gap between, you know, something familiar and something new, but I don't think that the balance is ever quite found. And instead, the new seems to resist the familiar, which leads to a lot of strange contradictions. Tonally, plot-wise, it feels like this movie is just lost or doesn't know exactly what it wants to be. And it has, you know, so many questions and ideas that it wants you to contemplate, particularly about like Western dating, particularly in a privileged society, a current society where dating just feels near impossible, where the bitterness towards sexes seems stronger than it's ever been before. But the rom-com formula to me just doesn't provide the right springboard for a lot of those ideas. And to me, it doesn't explore the thesis in an interesting way, especially when we have, again, all of these contemplative ideas, and it doesn't appear like Song is comfortable using this formula as a director and as a storyteller. The things that do work about the film for me would be Song's quiet contemplation throughout the movie. There is like this nice subtle intrigue that is going on throughout the first act, where we're feeling out the Dakota character and we're feeling out all of the, you know, new characters that are entering her life romantically. There's something to that subtlety that is nice and airy. It's almost like udon soup. It's like a palate cleanser, clean and minimal, again. And while social media is not really a literal element in the film, again, they are trying to keep, you know, the classicist mindset in an old Hollywood movie. It's there in the undercurrent. It's the idea of like dating apps. The more options you have, maybe the more overwhelmed you are, and the more you're swiping, I think, the harder it gets, the more you're likely to raise your expectations unrealistically. And they bring this up in the movie, but, you know, if you are like a Dakota Johnson type, then obviously you're going to have a lot of options available to you. And when you do that, it's like, okay, I like that guy's eyes, but I like, you know, his job, I like more his lifestyle, but that guy's sense of humor. But that's kind of the dilemma of the movie for me, is that, you know, it's showcasing like this aimless yet decadent life of a modern millennial who has, you know, a certain type of means. But that can be quite hard to mold into a more traditional arc, or to find maybe a strong conclusive statement at the end that feels satisfying. As much as I am intrigued by the kind of the minimalist approach of everything, it is skeletal for me, as if we have gutted all of the things that could have made this film special. The characters are often contemplating deep ideas, and they're quite direct in their delivery. Everything feels meditative, but I wanted more tread in the tires. But it's like we're trying to find an in. It's like we're trying to find an avenue to insert a lot of that frothy dialogue, or, you know, that flirty stuff, some humor, anything that is more meaty. But the effect is, you know, I had a lovely meal. I went to a really fancy restaurant, and it's like, there were some interesting things going on, interesting flavors, but ultimately I'm still hungry. And that's not how I want to feel after I leave a restaurant. I think the dialogue is meant to reflect a certain emptiness that exists in the dating world and between people, just a lack of authenticity, particularly in more urban areas, we'll say. But to me, that wasn't enough to compel you forward or to move the movie in any interesting direction. Most of these characters feel like stand-ins for better characters we have seen in the past. You look at the Pedro Pascal character, who, I think he had some bite to him, but he ultimately ends up a throwaway character, a device. I felt bad for the Chris Evans character because he becomes, more and more important as the movie goes on, and yet his character is constantly reduced to, like I said, his financial struggles and his hopeless devotion to the main character. But it's all going through the motions as the film progresses. We also could not find a strong dilemma here narratively, because I think the Dakota character, she needs to have that big ordeal and that redemptive arc, but what they went with felt confusing and misguided. Spoiler alert, but like I said, Johnson is a matchmaker in the movie, but one of her clients ends up getting assaulted by somebody that, she set them up with. And naturally, sure, while you can understand she'd feel some guilt, but the way it was handled, to me, it was like taking somebody's very real experience, a complicated situation, and reducing it to a plot device, a way for the Dakota character to self-actualize. That poor girl goes through a lot, but yet, again, she is dismissed and thrown away so that the Dakota character can look like the hero in the end. And it just didn't feel in step with the romantic triangle situation. And there's nothing meaty in her character that really gives us a clue as to why she would be so affected by this client. The best part is how Dakota decides to make out with her boyfriend, like right in front of the client's apartment when she's in a really sensitive situation. So yeah, there's just a lot of inconsistencies and silly things like that, unevenness. I'm just not buying into a lot of the narrative instincts or the character motivations. There's too much going on here and not a solid binding. I can see the talent and the spirit behind The Fog. I just don't think it's being utilized in the proper ways here. I can admire the attempt because we really don't see many romantic comedies these days, but unfortunately, I would say don't see this in the theater. If you must, maybe stream it. Just be prepared for, like I said, kind of an uneven tonal experience, at least in my opinion. But yeah, that is my review. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to plug my website as always. It is deepfocuslens.com. I'm an artist. I do commission portraits and I also sell prints of my work. If that is something you're interested in, you can always go to the website below. And if you have a question about a commission or a print, you can email me. My email is in the description box below as well. Also, I'd like to give a shout out to my patrons who are great. Guys, thank you so much for your support. Welcome to all the new members. If you are interested in supporting, the link for that is below, as well as the rest of my social media information. You can watch more videos here, and you can subscribe if you'd like. Catch you next time.